So let us go ahead and get into a spirit of prayer so we can go ahead and get into this blessing and then get into the reading and then get into our discussion. So in the spirit of prayer, hallelujah, hallelujah, and hallelujah. Baruch atah Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher notan lanu Mashiach Yeshua, lecha devaro shel haberit chadasha. Baruch atah noten haberit hachadasha. Amen. Blessed are you, Yah, El, King of the universe, who has given to us the Messiah Yeshua and the words of the renewed covenant. Blessed are you, Yah, who gives us the new covenant. Hallelujah and Amen. So we're going to read Galatians 3 in its entirety and deal with the challenging writing of what Shaul was saying. And we're going to have to really divide this into some very powerful principles because I was reading some of the commentary from the Jewish Annotated Bible, and I don't even think they got it right personally. And this is just my perspective. But let's go ahead. He says, "Oh, senseless Galatians, who has put you under a spell not to obey the truth, before whose eyes Yahushua Messiah was clearly portrayed among you as impaled? This only I wish to learn from you. Did you receive the Spirit by works of Torah or by the hearing of belief? Oh, you senseless, are you so senseless? Having begun in the Spirit, do you now end in the flesh? Have you suffered so much in vain, if indeed in vain? Is he then who is supplying the Spirit to you and working miracles among you, doing it by works of Torah or by hearing of belief? Even so, Abraham did believe Elohim, and it was reckoned unto him as righteousness. Know then that those who are of belief are sons of Abraham. Know then that those who are of the belief, who are faithful, are sons of Abraham. And the scripture, having foreseen that Elohim would declare right the nations by belief, by obedience, announced the good news to Abraham beforehand, saying, all the nations shall be blessed in you, so that those who are of belief are blessed with Abraham, the believer. For as many as are of works of Torah are under the curse, for it has been written, cursed is everyone who does not continue in all that has been written in the book of the Torah to do them. And that no one is declared right by Torah before Elohim is clear. For the righteous shall live by faithfulness, by belief. And the Torah is not of belief, but the man who does them shall live by them. This is so confusing if you don't know how to read this. Mashiach redeemed us from the curse of the Torah, having become a curse for us, for it has been written, cursed is everyone who hangs upon a tree. It's Deuteronomy 23. In order that the blessing of Abraham might come upon the nations in Mashiach Yehoshua, to receive the promise of the Spirit through belief. Brothers, as a man I say it, a covenant, even though it is a man's, yet if it is confirmed, no one sets it aside or adds to it. But the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Mashiach. Now, this I say, Torah that came 430 years later does not annul a covenant previously confirmed by Elohim in Mashiach, so as to do away with the promise. For if the inheritance is by Torah, it is no longer by promise, but Elohim gave it to Abraham through a promise. Why then the Torah? It was added because of transgressions. Listen to this. Until the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained through messengers in the hand of a mediator. The mediator, however, is not of one, but Elohim is one. Is the Torah then against the promises of Elohim? Let it not be. For if a law had been given that was able to make alive, truly righteousness would have been by Torah. But the scripture has shut up all mankind under sin, that the promise by belief in Yahushua Messiah might be given to those who believe. But before belief came, we were being guarded under Torah, having been shut up for the belief being about to be revealed. Therefore, the Torah became our trainer unto Messiah in order to be declared right by belief. And after belief has come, we are no longer under a trainer. For you are all sons of Elohim through belief in Messiah Yahushua. For as many of you as were immersed into Messiah have put on Messiah. There is not Yahudi nor Greek. There is not slave nor free. There is not male and female. For you are all one in Messiah Yahushua. And if you are of Messiah, then you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to promise. Let us pray. Avinu Malkeinu Yah Eloheinu Elohe Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov. Sarav Charachel in the Abiyah, to you we give all esteem and praise and honor. We thank you for this day. You have guarded our going out and our coming in for life and for peace, Abiyah. You have seen fit that you have allowed the breath of life to course within our nostrils and our vein, our lungs, Abiyah. And we just thank you for your mercy. We thank you for renewing our minds. We thank you for bringing us out of darkness into light, Abiyah. We thank you for your redemptive power. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for your word. We thank you for your spirit that you have breathed upon us and allowed for us to know and understand that you are El, and besides you, Heavenly Father, there is none. We thank you for your Mashiach, Abba Yah. We thank you for our Redeemer. We invite you here at this moment, Heavenly Father, asking your presence be with us as we confess any and all of our sins before you, and asking that you help us to continually wash ourselves clean with the water of your word. But we ask that you give us understanding, Heavenly Father, especially with these very challenging passages and scriptures that Shaul has written, Rav Shaul has written, Abba Yah. Help us to decipher and discern and to understand, and most importantly, Heavenly Father, to make relevant, to make practical, and to apply them to our life so that we may walk circumspectly, Heavenly Father, and redeem the time as these evil days are descending upon us. We praise your name, we thank you, we love you, we honor you, as we pray all these things in the name of our high priest, who is Mashiach Yahushua. Blessed be his name. Hallelujah and amen. And so this is powerful. This is very powerful. One thing that we want to delineate is the phrase right here, Ma'aseh HaTorah. I believe that is the verse there, 3. It says, Ha'atam Machalim Kol Kach Asher Hachalotam Ba'ruach Ba'ata. What's this? Tachlo Kabasar. Is that verse 3 or verse 2? Verse 2, Slika. I was reading verse 3. It says, Zot laved hafetzti lalamed mechom ha'am ma'aseh ha-Torah. Right there, the works of Torah, ma'aseh ha-Torah. Kabel tam, see this word here, kabel tam et haruach o mismavot ha-emunah. And so, did you receive the Spirit by works of Torah or by the hearing of belief, right? And so what we have to delineate, again, is what is the works, or what are the works of Torah? And this is where the book of Hebrews becomes so clear, because what the book of Hebrews does, the letter to the Hebrews, is it identifies the works of Torah. And we went over this several months ago as Beit Mashiyach, as a Levitical sacrificial system, right? Seeking to attain righteousness through the sacrificial system, which is something that will never attain perfection or righteousness. It was never the intent of Yah. So when we hear the works of Torah, and this is what that Torah is referencing. So when he goes throughout this particular chapter, and then you hear the reference to Torah, it's not speaking of the Torah that even Abraham obeyed, right? We read in Genesis. What chapter is that in Genesis? I want to say it's 29. It says that even Abraham, it's not 29, it's 28. Let me see. 26:5. I was close. So in Genesis 26:5, this is so important to understand. Hmm. Something to consider. But here you see, speaking to Yaakov, because I shall increase your seed like the stars of the heavens, and I shall give all these lands to your seed, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my charge, my commands, speak on my laws, and my Torah. So Abraham was observant of the Torah even in his day, though it was not yet written. Well, let me say this, though it was not yet in tablets, it was not yet on scrolls, it was on his heart, it was in his mind. And so when we're reading this here, this is what we have to delineate this, because the belief that Abraham received was the teachings of Yah, the instructions of Yah. So we're not completely tossing out the instructions of Yah. What is he hearing? He's hearing Yah's teaching. He's hearing Yah's word. His word is his truth. This is what he's asking in the first verse. Who put you under the spell to not obey the truth? What is the truth? The Torah, Yah's word, not the works of the Torah which were given. It tells us, why was the Torah added? They were added because of sin, right? It tells us that the Torah was added because of transgressions, verse 19. This is what took place with the book of Leviticus. Leviticus gives us the priestly Torah, the Levitical Torah specifically, to address what happens when sin occurs. Sin's done in ignorance, by the way. And that's why the Torah of the works of the Torah were added, right? But this is the Torah that Mashiach impaled and nailed to the tree, because there is no more condemnation. There is no more guilt offering in Mashiach Yahushua. When you look at that verse there, let me read this verse in Hebrew, Romans 8:1. Listen to this verse, and we're going to look at what it really is saying. And I love this. Haromayim, chapter 8. It says, Al Kain Ayin Ashma. Ashma Ba'ola. El Kain Ayin Ashma Ba'ola. There is now no more any guilt offering. So this word condemnation is a guilt offering. When you're dealing with Ashma, this is the guilt offering. There is no guilt offering that is to be offered. Aser Chan Ba Mashiach Yeshua, for those who are in Mashiach Yahushua, Hamat Halachim Balo Kabasar Ki Im Lapi Haruach. For those who are in Mashiach Yahushua who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit, to the Torah, to the word of Yah. So when we're looking at what is being done in Galatians 3, what Shaul is doing, he's showing the true standard of righteousness for the believer, which is obedience. And that's what caused Abraham to be considered righteous, because he was obedient. He did believe him. He obeyed Elohim, and it was reckoned unto him as righteousness. It was his obedience to the Torah in the spirit that allowed for him to be considered righteous. If that makes sense, you all following what I'm saying? I want to say Shabbat Shalom, or not Shabbat Shalom, but Shalom Aleichem to Ima Leoria, and Ima Sharon, Shalom Aleichem. And
Shalom.
so this is a huge delineation that we have to really divide and understand relative to what Shaul is talking about. He's not talking about doing away with the Torah at all. He's talking about the intermittent covenant with Levi, even though it was a perpetual covenant, but there was something that was perpetual until it was done away with, according to what chapter? Daniel. What verse? What book? Daniel chapter 9. When that would be completely done away with. I saw you unmute Imar Leoria. Please do go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying shalom.
Okay. Shalom Aleichem.
All right.
And so this is major. This is major. We cannot earn our way into the kingdom through offering sacrifices. That's never what Yah desired. Those are not the works, the ma'aseh, that Yah desired for us to do. Okay, what Yah desired for us to do to work. What is the work that we must do? Anybody remember what Yahushua tells us the work that we must do? What work must we do to serve Elohim? He says, don't labor for bread that perishes, but labor for the bread that leads to everlasting life. Well, what is the works that we should do? They ask him.
I think he say to believe on him.
Ah, very much so. But that belief is not just a matter of just believing. What should we do to work the works of Elohim? Yahushua answered and said to them, this is the work of Elohim, that you believe in him whom he sent. And that is requiring us to be obedient to his word. Because what is Mashiach? If you go to John 1, what is Mashiach?
He's the word.
The word made flesh, 100%. So if you believe in him whom he sent, you understand that Mashiach is the word made flesh. So you believe the Torah, you obey the Torah, and more importantly, well, let me ask you this. If you believe and obey the Torah, what do you become? If you believe and obey the Torah, what do you become?
Mashiach.
You become Mashiach, which is nothing more than the Torah made flesh. You become Yah's word. Remember, when you read in Revelation 19, and those who have come to the wedding supper of the Lamb, he says, these are the true words of Elohim. Those who have come to the wedding supper are the true words of Elohim, not the statement. Those who respond to Yah's word are his true words. Those who fulfill Yah's words are his true words. This is what we come to understand. This is prophetic fulfillment. And so, as we look at Galatians 3, it becomes that much more clear. We hear Torah, we hear the instructions, we hear Yah's word, we fulfill Yah's word. Guess what? There's no need to carry out the works of the Torah in the sense that you have to make an offering anymore because you're blameless. And that's what made Abraham righteous, because he didn't even have to offer any offerings after he realized that after the festival he had for Yitzhak. And that's why he was challenged to bring Yitzhak to Mount Moriah. Because Satan was like, he don't serve you no more. Not knowing Abraham is entirely sold out. And those who are of belief are sons of Abraham. And that's why Abraham is important. Now, one thing I wanted to come back to Aki Shakir and say, and this is why I brought up the collective soul. All this goes in together. Without Abraham, we have no Yahushua. And so, not to say Abraham is greater than Yahushua, but Abraham's role that he played was essential in bringing forth Yahushua. But Yahushua's role is essential in bringing forth the nation and the kingdom of priests that Yah initially established back in Exodus 19. If we had not rejected our prophetic calling and our priestly calling in Exodus 19, we would have been the messianic nation and kingdom that Yah had intended us to be, and the world would not be in its condition. But we did not want that office at that time. Okay. And so this is how the earth will once again be blessed when all the sons and daughters of Abraham are once again in alignment with the will of Yah. And that's what this ultimately comes down to. This comes down to providence. It comes down to us being in alignment with the will of Yah. And so this is what causes all to be blessed, right? But the problem is this, right? Those who are of the works of Torah are under the curse. And that's what Romans 8 is telling us. There is no curse. There is no guilt offering to those who are in Mashiach Yahushua, those who are in Mashiach, those who are walking according to the word. We don't have to offer a guilt offering. And there is no curse because we are entirely faithful and in alignment with the will of Yah. Mori Elihu, your microphone. Yes, sir.
Hey, peace, shalom, shalom, y'all, shalom, Nicole.
Love my key.
So I do agree with Paul a lot, and I understand the depths of what he's saying. Indeed, but just to try to keep this in historical context, if we were to mirror Galatians 3:2, where it say, "This only what I learned of you received by the Spirit, he the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith," we know like he talking to his Galatian church, right? He sending his letter, right?
Right.
Something was going on in the historical backdrop of why he's sending this letter. Do anybody happen to know why? If not, let me just speak on it a little bit.
Let's go.
Historically speaking, at this time, Paul there was a lot of rumors going around, and he was being tried even by his own church, because at this time you had two different outlets of the gospel of Yeshua going on. And I want to prove that contextually, but I don't want to take away from time. But maybe after class or something, I wanted to go to Galatians chapter 1, Galatians 2, just to get the full context of what we're reading in Galatians 3. All right. But I want to mirror verse 2 of Galatians 3 with James chapter 2, verse 18, which everybody know what this is.
James 2:18.
Yes, sir.
Let me pull that up.
So this in James chapter 2 will be a rebuttal message that Yaakov Hasadik, aka James the Just, sent as a rebuttal to Romans chapter 8. All right, so it say, "Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith." Like that's what Paul insinuating right here, right? And he say, "And I have works. Show me your faith show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show you my faith by my works." So right here, we seeing whether or not some people may see it scholarly or not, but you seeing contention between two different groups. I know it's easy for us to say, no, they was not contentious with each other. They was in sync. But historically speaking, you had two schools of thought at this time. And Galatians chapter 3, verse 2 is directly related to James chapter 2, verse 18. I want to say more on that, but I'm going to just stop right there.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Based off of what Maury Eliu just said, I was thinking, the differences in the school of thought, I'm wondering what are those differences specifically, because we know that Shaul or Paul, he wasn't teaching lawlessness. He wasn't teaching against keeping the Torah. He was teaching against, if anything, the sacrificial system. But I was curious, is the school of thought, the difference in the school of thought, was James the Just still practicing sacrificial system after his brother was, after Messiah was the atonement, was he still, what was the difference really?
Right. So that's the common argument. People will say that Paul is talking against sacrifices. Well, if the Jamesian community was the only other community preaching the gospel outside of Paul, the Jamesian community already had got rid of sacrifices. They was not keeping that, as we can see in Acts chapter 15. Also, what we see in Acts chapter 15, Paul and Barnabas comes to a meeting with James the Just, the part of the circumcision, and some Pharisees. and they was trying to come to a consensus on whether or not they was gonna let the Gentiles circumcise. So we see here the argument ain't about sacrificing at all. The argument is about whether or not we gonna make these Gentiles practice Jewish law. While Paul was saying, well, I got them to clean their life up without Jewish law. That was the argument was about, which is why, again, Galatians chapter 3, verse 2, Paul was like, this only what I learn of you. Have you received the Spirit by works of the law, or had you received it by hearing of the faith? So this is what he telling his congregants. I won y'all over by faith, not by performing the law. Because at this time, a rumor was going around, and they was trying to figure out, well, shoot, we hearing from the James community that we should be keeping Jewish law along with this gospel. And Paul was like, well, shoot, that ain't how I won y'all over. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to kind of give a historical backdrop on that argument that was being made at this time, and it wasn't about sacrifice. It was about whether or not people was gonna have a very Jewish cultural undertone to their faith, or was they still gonna be able to allow to have the Eurocentric out view or not?
I wouldn't even say Eurocentric. If anything, just whatever Gentile nation they might come from, would they still be practicing that Gentile culture along with the faith that they have in Mashiach and them being born again, essentially. So they trying to figure out, based off of what I'm hearing in my own train of thought, they're trying to figure out how are they going to, are they supposed to take on Hebrew culture and the Hebrew way of life along with their faith in Mashiach? And I wouldn't even say that Paul was teaching against Jewish law either. It's like saying he was teaching against Jewish law, and James the Just wasn't. That he was preaching on with Jewish law, like you said, circumcision.
Yeah, I ain't
Well,
say
then
he teached against it at all. I'm saying what was
I know
allowed.
you said that that James was saying that they are to get circumcised. And so to be specific, it was more about circumcision, right?
A lot of that was around circumcision, but what Shaul was saying was don't put that before them as they received the Spirit without being circumcised. Even Abraham did. So this is what he pointed out. He was pointing
Yeah,
out that this was not the prerequisite for them to enter into the covenant. The
yeah.
prerequisite was
And
for
we
them
know
to
that,
have their
right?
heart circumcised first and foremost, right? The
Yeah.
heart, the circumcision of the heart was the focus, which
Mhm.
I would also include as a work of the law. The circumcision is also considered a work of the law. But this is something that the mature in faith are going to do. You see Timothy go get circumcised in the 16th chapter of Acts, right? And so this was not something that was to do for those who were just coming into the faith. Those who
Mhm.
had just walked in, the circumcision was going to turn many away, right? And so in order to matriculate
Yeah.
them and graduate them through the system of faith, right? And have them come into the kingdom. These are you read Acts 15 again, these are the requirements here. Don't fornicate, don't serve idols, don't eat blood, right? There were some basic requirements that they were told to observe that you can consider works of the Torah even that they were to not do so that they can become members of the community. Okay? So there are some things that were preliminarily set. Now, what I would challenge us to look at is there were free will, there were elevation offerings, there were meal offerings, there were peace offerings that were made. What Mashiach did away with were the guilt and the sin offerings. So what I understand was that there were no guilt offerings or sin offerings that the community were required to do because number one, if they were in Mashiach, as Romans 8 tells us, they didn't have to offer those because they were unblemished already. They were walking in righteousness. Okay. I don't want to go too far because I do see Ima Leoria's hand. She had her hand up, so I want Ima Leoria to have an opportunity to speak as well. Yes, ma'am.
You know, while you all were talking, it made me think of, when my husband and I first really came into the faith, and there was that talk almost right off the bat, because I think it was right at Passover, um, the, about circumcision, right, like you're saying, like right away, just
Right.
damn circumcision, just like a person going to a church. I'll use that analogy, and it's just right away. Oh, you got to be submerged. You have to
Yeah.
be baptized. So I can see that as being
Stumbling block.
yeah, it's frightful, when you think about it, just, with not giving any explanation and with not going over scripture and the whole meaning and all of that. So it makes sense to me now. But at first we thought, being in the church, that, you didn't have to do that at all. And I think that's where people, um, you know, decide, oh, I don't have to do anything of the law.
That's the problem. That's
Right
the
here. Right.
misunderstanding that is completely. And this chapter is so taken out of context because he's not throwing out the instructions. He's not throwing out the wisdom. He's not throwing out the culture of the kingdom, right? He's throwing out the unnecessary aspects that were just brought in to address transgression, as he just says in verse, what's that, 15, 16, 17. Why did the Torah come in? Why did the works of the law come in? They came in because of transgressions, right? So this, why then the Torah? Speaking of the works of the Torah, it was added because of transgressions. Now, let's really think about this though. The more laws, because pretty much you can look at it like this: love is the entire basis of the Torah. And so, even after that, every commandment that came, even after the garden, is a result of a transgression. So, Yah is responding to the nature of man becoming more corrupt with these laws, these instructions, right? And this is where it gets into the matter of the trainer or the schoolmaster. It talks about the guardian. The Torah is our trainer unto Messiah, because what it is teaching us is how not to just capitulate to our nature and to worldly ways, but these are the instructions that will allow you to become messianic. So the Torah is what teaches you how to think, how to speak, and how to act like the Messiah. And if we're doing things on our own way, that is where we're completely going out of bounds, because now we're following a way that seems right to us, but it ends in death, right? This is why a man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of Yah. But what Yah did was also create institutions to cover sin. Because if sin happens, there has to be some blood that gets shed, but that is not, we're not supposed to sin. You remember in Exodus 20, when he says, don't be afraid, he came to prove you so that you do not sin. When Yah came and shook the whole earth in front of Israel on Mount Sinai, it was so that they don't sin. It wasn't to make them afraid to the degree where they're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. No, it was to let them know this is the power that you have on your side, and also the power that will be against you if you choose not to serve Yah. And so this is what the faithful understand. They remain faithful to Yah's word. And so there's no need to actually go through these other unnecessary works. Now, the works that we do is to believe on the one whom he sent. That's the work. You trust in Yah, you keep the commandments, and you love Yah with all your heart, soul, and strength, and you love your neighbor as yourself. That's how you show what your faith is. And so this dichotomy almost between Shaul and Yaakov, James and Paul, is very interesting, and it's actually an excellent highlight. It's actually a very excellent teaching tool for us to understand if we look at it comprehensively. And even if we look at it historically, because what it does, it shows that there is not only a contrast, but there's also a complement that also exists within this, and that is a matter of just being faithful to Yah's word. Our work is faithfulness. Our work is obedience. That's what demonstrates everything. We don't even got to say anything if we're faithful and we're just living the Torah according to Yah's word. That's the witness. That's the spirit. And so the more in alignment we are with the will of Yah, with our thoughts, words, and actions, right, the more manifest will Yah's presence be. And this is what Galatians is really, I would argue, is uncovering and dealing with, and that we're being immersed into the Messiah. How do you immerse into the Messiah? You immerse into the Messiah by learning of the Messiah's ways and learning of the Messiah's thoughts, which are nothing less than Yah's thoughts and Yah's ways. And that's why Isaiah prophesied and told Israel, well, your thoughts are not my thoughts and your ways are not my ways, but we are to receive Yah's thoughts and to carry out Yah's ways by learning of Yah's Torah. And that's how we become children of Elohim. And that's what it says in John 1, to those who receive him, to them he gave the authority to become children of Elohim, who were not born according to the flesh or blood or the desire of man, but according to Elohim, the word of Elohim. So this word does give birth to us if we allow it to impregnate our hearts and our minds. And that's what this is really addressing. So this is a very profound chapter. And I love the fact that you brought that historical element up, because when we really look at this, and we have to deal with the interpretations that have been given from the Western perspective, from a Eurocentric perspective, that is entirely divorced the ideas that Paul was really trying to convey, that were somewhat, and I would say, because if you look even in Acts, there was a contention that they would say, oh, you're teaching against the law of Moses. No, I'm really not. I'm just trying to groom these Gentiles to come into this community, because we can't just force everything on them just off top. You can't do that off top. They're not going to receive this off top. Not everything. But if we prepare them to come into this covenant and allow them to remain ritually clean so they can come into the synagogues and into the temple and learn, right? So we keep this energy flowing, keep this spirit, pure with us, then they will grow. And as they grow, they will learn. And as they learn, they'll become. And they'll embrace the covenant, because they're going to fall in love with this Torah. And that's how you fall in love with Yah. That's what Yah gives us to have an intimate connection and relationship with him. Like that's how we know Yah's mind. That's how we know Yah's heart. That's how we know Yah's will. And so Shaul is not at all like taking that away. He's giving them a better context, and like, you don't need all this extra sacrificial stuff to do this. No, let's focus on the faithfulness. The focus is being faithful. The focus is obedience. That's the focus. The focus is having your heart circumcised. The focus is being born again. Morielihu, yes, sir.
Hey, Peace, I had found something on not accident, but I stumbled across. I just want to share this real quick.
Okay, do you need a share screen?
Nah, so
it'd be better. Let me stop, because it'll bring up your camera a little better. So let's go.
You said let's go?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so this, if anybody have those certain study Bibles, y'all know in the beginning of each book, it kind of give you authorship, recipients, date, and place of writing. But I want to focus on their purpose because I'm just not seeing this. It say Paul seeks to expose the error of the Judaizers' gospel and their impure motives. So Paul went, you know, he wasn't exposing the error by the way of nobody that wasn't of a messianic thought. The people that he referring to is it was a group that obviously was pushing a messianic gospel as well. It say his ultimate goal is to prevent the readers from embracing a false gospel and to encourage them to retain their spiritual freedom in Christ. The apostle does not want his dear converts to be tied up with all the now abolished rules and regulations of the Mosaic law, which will lead them into legalism. I don't fully agree with this, but I understand what these white scholars trying to say. And basically, I want to make sure that, and eventually we're gonna get to it though. But if we pay attention as we continue reading through Galatians, specifically chapter 3, I want to make sure that we be cognitive of the undertone, like the purpose of the message, because it's a purpose for the people he writing to, and it's a purpose for us in 2024 as well.
Yes, sir.
So you got two different purposes, but right now I'm just kind of focusing, or not focusing, but just bringing awareness to the first purpose, which was to the people he was actually writing to in this time frame about 55 AD, 22 years after Yeshua would have died. Paul was going through troubles of him not having apostolic recommendation by the other apostles. Jacob Hasadik which was the head of the three pillars that he mentioned in Galatians chapter 2. So whenever y'all see in 2 Corinthians 9, when he talk about the letter of the law, or the letter, a lot of people think that they may be talking about the actual letter. It could be. You can apply it to that, but historically, that's talking about him getting letters of recommendation, as he would say, letters of commendation from the heads of other gospel communities. And the only reason I brought that up, just to make it relate to, what we read in Galatians chapter 3, is that going forward, as we dissect these next few verses, understand that when you go back to Galatians 2, why he's saying this to these people? What are these people in Galatia hearing, and who they hearing it from? And so Paul goes in to explain his position as being a spiritual position, not ordained by man, but ordained by
Mashiach,
or a ghost, or whoever he was calling Mashiach.
Right.
But yeah. Big old piece of shalom.
I love that. Let's deal with this Judaizer, because this is a major, major role here to understand. These were the ones who were very, very. They used the word legalism in this, so they were legalistic. But let's take a look at this, what this essay says. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. We're going to and I shared this in the chat so you all can follow along if you want to go and read the whole essay. Now, the one before this is called Paul and Judaism. I would refer you all to these articles as well from this particular annotated Jewish Bible. It says, in recent years, the so-called parting of the ways question, when and how did Judaism and Christianity turn into two distinct and separate phenomena, has been approached in new ways. We have learned to recognize more clearly how Christian and Jewish authorities were trying to secure clearer boundaries between the two traditions. We have also learned to differentiate the official position from how the people whom they were addressing may have behaved and believed. For instance, as late as 386 of the current era, John Chrysostom, the Christian bishop and author of Adversus Judaeus, Sermons Against the Jews, right, can thunder at his audience about the dangers of attending synagogues and succumbing to the evils of the Jewish holiday observances. The vitriolic attack is a clear indication that people in his Christian communities in Antioch on the Orontes were attracted to and frequented Jewish synagogues. While Christian Chrysostom would have liked his flock to consider this as a dangerous blurring of boundaries, his audience, for all we know, may have considered attendance at synagogues as perfectly compatible with their Christian beliefs. The more careful reading of the ancient texts has moved the supposed date of the actual separation between Judaism and Christianity from its initial dating at the end of the first century to the current one that places it at the end of late antiquity, circa 200 to 700 CE. I would say this is around Nicaea and Laodicea, right? But he goes on to say, or she goes on to say, not even the Roman Emperor Constantine's conversion in the early 4th century signals the end of Jewish and Christian enmeshing, since the Christianization of the empire and the institutional boundaries that this produced took centuries longer. So it wasn't an initial cut, but that I would say was the inception of it. It may have gone back before that, but I know that it really had a catalyst around 325. In this discussion, so-called hybrid groups variously labeled Jewish Christians, Christians, Jews, Judaizers, and in early rabbinic texts, Menim, or generic Hebrew term for sectarians, play a central role. Such groups, as we assume, blurred the boundaries between the two major religious traditions, much like the Antiochian Christian synagogue goers that so enraged Chrysostom. The persisting problem with these labels, however, is that none of the people to whom they are applied would have recognized them or chosen them. In most cases, such terminology is used either by early Christian and rabbinic polemic writers, those who were seeking to be divisive, declaring those who do not follow their guidelines to be heretics, or by modern scholars who seek to clarify the story of Jewish and Christian identity formation. Furthermore, in many cases, we cannot even be sure whether such a group or groups existed, since ancient authors may have concocted them in order to shore up their own control over their own presumed authentic and pure version of Christianity or Judaism. In other words, these terms cannot easily work as descriptive terms and thus may have outlived their usefulness. Let's look at what this Judaizing is, though.
It was a paragraph I definitely wanted to see you read.
Which one was it?
It's on the right where it say Paul differentiates. Go back up.
Okay,
Yeah.
right here. So Paul differentiates between the gospel for the circumcised, of which Peter, the apostle of the circumcision, is in charge, and the gospel for the uncircumcised. So what's that mean, though? Right? This means that Paul is dealing with those who are considered Gentile, whereas Peter was considered dealing with those who are those of Israel. Okay. So equally in the later book of Acts, the leaders of the earliest communities of Yeshua followers in Jerusalem, James and his colleagues addressed the newly established community of Antioch with its many non-Jewish members as the brothers of Gentile origin in Antioch and Syria versus the circumcised believers. Okay. Scholars subsequently restate this distinction as referring to the two types of early believers as Jewish as opposed to Gentile Christians. So, however, no New Testament author uses the terminology Jewish Christian. The Petrine of Peter's mission, the gospel for the circumcised, would appear to have produced Jewish Christians. All right. So we know that that never was the case. They never became Christian. They were just Israelites. They were Notrim. They were followers of their rabbi from Nazareth, which is why they were called Notrim. Okay. Or they were called Haderech, followers of the way. Jews who are also Yeshua believers and who may still understand themselves to be Jews. What about the people whom Paul seeks to convert, the Gentiles? Are these simply Gentile Christians, former pagans who have become followers of the Messiah, as opposed to the Jewish Christians that Peter produces? This distinction appears to be an ethnic one. Things become messy, however, as the two groups merge to form one community, as is the case in Antioch. Initially, Peter and his Jewish Christians get along just fine with Paul and his Gentile Christians and share meals. But when James sends emissaries from Jerusalem to Antioch to check up on what is going on, Peter apparently prefers to draw a clear line again, at least in Paul's account of the conflict, by separating himself and presumably his group from Paul's people during common meals. This is the only time the New Testament refers to Judaizing, as Paul accuses Peter, or Kepha, of wanting Paul's Gentile Christians to Judaize, to become entirely Jews, literally to behave or live like Jews. And what's so interesting here, let me say this. This is what Shaul's argument was we cannot just fully immerse them into this at one fell swoop. We have to groom them to take on this entire covenant. That's why it says the man who does them shall live by them, right? But the hearing, he said, comes by faith. So as they hear, they will grow, but they have to be groomed. So this term is found. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to point out again, just to reiterate that there was two different groups, and we seeing these two different groups even in this article, although we can show it in scripture well.
Yes,
one
sir.
group which was led by James, Peter, and John, and the other group that was led by Paul, Marcion, and Nicholas.
Yes, sir.
Two different groups, two different trainers, two school of thoughts. Now, one group was actually given the keys by Yeshua himself in the flesh. One group grew up in the house with him. One group ate with him. One group did everything with him, while the other group was speaking towards concept. My question is, if we had to pick or choose, which one do we pick or choose? Both sides got valid points. Even Paul, even though me personally, I don't like, I would say I would choose the Jameson community, but I agree with Paul so much because he did go to the best schools. He did receive a Greek curriculum in education, which was high in doggone what you call it, abstract thought, and just pondering, pondering on things, right? So the Greeks was big on that, big on philosophy, which is not a bad thing, right? But and we can even see some forms of Kabbalah was influenced by Platonic thought and philosophy. But what I'm saying is, Paul coming from an educated background, Yeshua them coming from a common man, laity, lower class background, and they were steeped in Jewish culture. Which side do we choose if we had to choose a side? You see what I'm saying?
And I get what you're saying. I do. What I would like to bring out of that is that Shaul's audience was different than Kepha, Yaakov, and Yohanan's audience. They were two different audiences. And once we can really reconcile that and know that Shaul was dealing with people who had no clue about the Torah, he was introducing them to. They were curious. They were coming into this particular way, but they did not have a full understanding of it. So what he did, and you hear him say this, I become all things to all men so that I may win them to Mashiach, right? So Shaul was using ideas and notions familiar to the Gentile and accustoming and acculturating it to Torah culture. Whereas Kepha, Yaakov, and Yohanan were strictly Torah, right? So what we choose, I wouldn't say what we choose, what we have to do in order to really reconcile the difference is understand who the audience is and what the intent. They both are intent in bringing them to Mashiach, if I understand it correctly. However, Shaul's approach was way different than Kepha, Yaakov, and Yohanan's because the people who he was dealing with were not on the level that the people that Yaakov and Kepha and Yohanan were, right? So they were entirely different. So what Shaul's beef was like, why are you trying to force everything on these people at one time? And that's why he went to Yaakov in Acts 15. Like, let's slow down. Let's get them to a place where we can actually to wrestle with this. And exactly because the world is much more Gentile than it is of Israel. And so it sticks more. But we have to appreciate that and understand how to use Paul's methods in dealing with those who are not familiar, even with us, because we weren't familiar with the Torah at one particular time. We were completely ignorant of what the Torah was all about. And so Shaul's writings have a place for us to come into understanding how to observe Torah. Yes, sir, Shakir.
So yeah, I was just gonna say that too, because I'm thinking about these Gentiles, and I'm like, there's amongst our community, we have different trains of thought, where it's like, who are the Gentiles? A lot of the camp doctrines, they teach that the Gentiles are Israelites, but they're
Right.
living in a Gentile state of mind. And I would have to agree with that to a certain extent. There's different types of Gentiles. There's Israelites that are Gentiles, and then there's, how can I be specific?
Japhethites.
Exactly. There's groups that are like, let's just say, even Edomites that are Gentiles. You know what I'm saying? There's Gentiles from all nations, including Israel, spread in the diaspora that have no clue about the law, statutes, commandments, or the Hebrew traditions, any of that. We are a part of that Gentile, essentially, Israelite community, where we're coming out of the diaspora. We don't know anything about our law, statutes, commandments, our history and heritage. We were cut off. As some of the as Rav Zion would say, I forget the terminology, but it's basically how the halakhic description of us being cut off from our understanding, if you know what I'm talking about, of our way of life. What is it? Kanishba, something like that.
How I know what you're talking about. I can't
AJ,
pronounce it.
Say it again.
in the halakhic terminology of us being cut off from our way of life.
To Nokshanishba.
To Nokshanishba. So because of that, thank you, Aki Toda. Because of that, we are now coming back into this understanding. And if we were, and I understand that you were saying, if we had to choose, what we would choose, and for us, it really depends on the person, because there's Israelites out here that are more Gentile than the Gentiles. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want this life. And if they do want it, they can't handle they could barely handle the milk. How they gonna handle the meat, essentially, but there's Gentiles that they want it all. They're keeping the law, statutes, commandments. They doing the ZZs. They doing everything that they can. Like, look at the Jewish community today. The European Jews have completely immersed themselves in our culture and now have taken it on as their own culture. Not to say some of them are not bloodline Israel, but I know you get what I'm saying, that they are living it as if it was there. They don't even look at themselves as Gentiles. Now they start to look at everybody else like they're Gentiles, including us. Well, who is to blame them? Because we're not practicing the laws and commandments. We have no connection. We don't have a history to back it up. As far as they know, we do have a history, but because of our transgressions, we've been cut off, and now we're still a part of that Gentile diaspora Israelite group. So, I would want this is like, for me, it's like voting. I'm not picking the red or the blue or the left or the right and none of that. I'm just gonna not vote at all. I'm not gonna pick at all. Even if they had tell me I had to, I'm not going with the status quo, because I see that there's truth within both groups. And it's something that Morey said, that we have to utilize. This is the purpose of of Israel, is to teach Torah to the Gentile nations, whether they be Israelite Gentiles or Greek Gentiles, or so on and so forth. Whatever type of Gentile they may be, our purpose is to teach Torah to all the nations. So we have to learn from educated brothers like Shaul or Paul. We have to learn from them and see how they interacted with some of the Gentiles of their day and how they were teaching them. He gave us a firm foundation on that. We can't force it on them, because we're going to scare them away. And at the same time, when we're trying to help our Old Testament only, non-messianic, brothers and sisters that don't know anything about Mashiach, Yeshua, and his atonement, and the end to the sacrificial system, we have to still be able to share the Besorah with them as well too. And how do we reach them? We have to do it from a James the Just type of perspective. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to become James the Just, and you have to become Paul to anyone and everyone, essentially, depending on the person you're talking to.
Context, right? It's all contextual.
Mm-hmm. So I just look at it as in I can't choose. I have to I have to create something new where it's balanced, and because it's too much labels, it's too much division.
Truly.
Even though Yahusha came to divide, he didn't come to divide the truth. He came to
Right.
bring us together under the umbrella of truth. And you can find that truth in Christianity. And you can find that truth or remnants of that truth in Christianity, remnants of that truth in modern Judaism, and even other world religions, even other ways of thought, like we keep bringing up Hellenistic ways of thought. Where there's truth in those ways of thought, spiritual
Mhm.
truths in that, because it's all going back to our forefathers and our ancestors that pass it on to these different nations that they established. Noah
Yeah.
was the one that passed on these understanding, but over time it was perverted between, and it was changed in ways,
Mhm.
but the truth
Mhm.
in those nations, the truth within that paganism, the truth within all of these different cultures is still there, and we have to take it back and wash it clean and bring it back and fit all the puzzle pieces together, because it's not a religion for us, it's just spirit and truth, you
That's
know.
excellent. That's excellent. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're being Mashiach. Mashiach is the one who reconciles Israel first back to Yah. And so our goal is to be the mediators. We are the mediators. This is what Second Corinthians chapter 5 is all about. It's about serving as the mediator between Yah and humanity. So he talks about here, uh, we are now envoys on behalf of Messiah, as though Elohim were pleading through us. We beg on behalf of Messiah, be restored to favor with Elohim. So the key is to understand where these people are and meet them where they are and bring them to Yah according to the pace that they're able to go. A lot of times we want to accelerate things. We want to just expect someone to get it. No, it doesn't happen like that. Even with ourselves, we look at ourselves, how we come to our understanding. We don't just get this overnight. We can't expect people to get this stuff overnight. We have to be patient and loving and compassionate and gentle and able to teach. It talks about these things of what it is to bring people into this light. And just think about it. If you got someone that's been in the darkness for so long and you just put a flashlight, brightly fast flashlight on their face, you're going to disturb them. You're going to cause them grief and pain. But if you gradually expose them to the light and you let them adjust, you let them understand what the darkness is and what the light is, and you bring them into the light, it's going to be much more easier for them to acculturate. Because that's what this kingdom is about. The kingdom is about Yah's culture. And it's different than the world. Yah's culture is night and day, literally, light and dark from this world. And so we have to be able to demonstrate that. And I would argue that Shaul did that, but what Shaul did was he met the Gentiles where they were. For instance, when you look at him in the Areopagus, he picked out a statue, even though he knows it was beyond a statue. It's not made with hands, but he said, "This is what you all are trying to do, and let me show you what this is, and let me point to you what this is all about. This is the true and living El. Even your own poets write of him, right? But in him we live, we move, we have our being." And so it's a matter of taking notions that are perhaps pagan and Gentile and then bringing them to Yah. We got to reel that in. We got to deconstruct it and we got to reconstruct it. That's what has to happen. And this is so that the world is able to say, Shema Israel, Yah Eloheinu, Yah Echad. That is the profession that we are seeking for the entire world to make. Hero Israel, Yah is our El, Yah is one. That's when the kingdom is present. When every human being bends their knee and bows and confesses Yah is El, Yah is one, then the kingdom is here. And this is where we have to find a role in doing that. And this is where Shaul is talking about here in getting man to understand that, well, he's getting the Gentile. Well, this is what's so interesting about Galatians 3. Legalism is something that Yahushua even dealt with himself. Legalism is dealing with the commandments of man, the teachings of man, as opposed to the commandments of Elohim. And I think that's where we can really delineate what Shaul is talking about. Because if the commandments of Yah are being completely done away with, then we know that this is not a teaching of Yah. Because that's what demonstrates man's love for Yah. If you love me, you keep my commandments, right? And if you love Yah and you keep the commandments, guess what? There is no need for the additional works of the Torah, because the work of the Torah is already accomplished in that you love Yah and you keep his commandments. That's the fulfillment of the Torah and the prophets. Your faithfulness, your belief. And so what Shaul and Yaakov are saying really are one and the same thing. It's just two sides of the same coin. Like, you know what? If you show me your work, I'm going to show you my belief. But what Shaul is saying, if you don't have this belief, you can't even do that work. But the works that you are not needing to do, such as the sacrificial law. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to circumcise. I do believe we do have to be circumcised. But the sacrificial system, no, you don't have to do that anymore. Abraham even demonstrated that. Abraham clearly demonstrated that. This is even when you go and you look at what he says in chapter 4 about Mount Sinai and Mount Moriah. There's a distinction. One is enslaved, one is free. Mount Moriah is free because now you're on Zion. You are completely in the presence of Yah. When you're in Yah's presence, Yah has your heart. Yah has your mind. You're going to serve Yah with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength, which does not require us to make any blood offerings. And so that's what I would say this is what this is talking about in Galatians 3. And so this is a very, very controversial chapter, but the chapter is demonstrating what Abraham demonstrated in being entirely faithful and obedient to the word of Yah, to the Torah of Yah. And we saw in Genesis 26, Abraham kept the Torah. He kept the commandments. He kept the laws faithfully. Before the Torah was even codified and written on tablets, it was in Abraham's heart. It was in his mind. But what this really comes down to here, I want to focus on 24. I'm getting hungry, y'all, because I haven't eaten all day. 24 through 29 is the key. The Torah is our trainer unto the Messiah. In order that we are declared right by our faithfulness, the fact that we believe him whom Yah sent, right? The Torah is what teaches you to understand who Yah sent and that you can come to him, not only to learn of his teachings, but to become like him. And it's like after this belief, after we have received the faithfulness, we're not under that trainer anymore. There is no Torah for love. There is no Torah for any of the fruits of the Spirit. This is what it says in Galatians 5. There's no law against any of those things. There's no curse that will come as a result of you being in the fruit of the Spirit. And that is when we become children of Elohim. John 1. John 1 tells us those who receive him became children of Elohim. Exactly, More Elihu. Who we got here? Shalabachi. Shalom alaikum and to you, Shalabachi. But this is the crucial aspect of it here, right? And once we are immersed in Mashiach, we become Mashiach now. We have put on Mashiach. This is what we talked about this past Shabbat. Mashiach is the answer. Anything that the world is suffering from, Mashiach is the answer. The Messiah is the answer to all the world's woes. It's the answer to division. It's the answer to sickness. It's the answer to war. It's the answer to hate. It's the answer to lust. It's the answer to everything. Messiah is the answer. And if Messiah is the answer, guess what? Torah is the answer. And as we know in Romans 2, the one who is inwardly observing and loving Yah and observing his Torah, you're the Yahudi. You are the true Yahudi. The circumcision is not of the flesh, it is truly of the heart. And that is where we actually become one in Messiah Yahushua. And that's how we receive the promise, the blessings, the reward that Abraham told that his seed would receive in Genesis 15, verse 1. He told Abraham, your reward is great, but his reward is conditioned upon his faithfulness to the covenant. You ain't getting no reward if you ain't faithful. You ain't getting no reward if you don't become a Mashiach. In the name of Yahushua. And with that, I would like to rest, man. So if there are any comments, any reflections, any thoughts, please feel free to share at this time. But I just wanted to present that and pray that we can actually continue to grow and learn from this.
I like how the New Testament speak about B'nai Elohim, the sons of Elohim. I wanted to know if it be a consistent theme in anybody's mind when it comes to Bereshit, when it talked about the sons of God that went into the daughters of men.
Come on,
it seems as if sometimes our mind may flip, to serve a different reading when we read that.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm chill right there though.
That is so overlooked. That is so overlooked, and it always wants to become something more than it is. B'nai Elohim were the children of Jared and his generation that fell. They are the Nephilim. They are the ones that came down from the mountain into the valley and laid with the daughters of Cain. That's what that's talking about.
Right. If I could, I would like to just share one thing, and then I'm pass to the next person.
Please do. Let me go ahead and take it off.
Let me switch my camera around. So,
excellent point.
Just to add to that, again, the oldest manuscript we got for our Genesis, or for our oldest Old Testament manuscript, date back to 650 BCE, but it's almost around the time frame where we would have been encountering a lot of Babylonians. And in encountering a lot of Babylonians, you had a lot of Assyrians, which will be the Middle Age Babylonians, up to the Neo-Babylonians, who will be the Persians. But check this out real quick. If I were to speak to, here I'm inside of one of these old school Bible almanacs, by the way, y'all. But it speaks about Jewish mysticism. Elements of pagan religion began to fill the voids created by skepticism and doubt. Some Yehudim hedged their faith by dabbling in astrology and the occult. They moved into these areas very slowly, and Jewish leaders did not realize at first what was happening. But Jewish mystics began to reinterpret the traditional Jewish teachings in light of the pagan beliefs they had accepted. For example, Yehudim of the diaspora, the Giluts, became fascinated with demons and angels. I want to stop there real quick, because no, I'm not saying that demons and angels is not a real thing. But what I'm saying is, at some point, our forefathers was not fixated on that. And at some point, our forefathers did get fixated on that by way of cultural influence from another nation, from another people. So when we see the fixation and the obsession over it in today's time, we got to know the provenance origin of where they come from. That comes from Babylonian captivity when we encountered Magi's and Persians. But let me keep reading real quick. They qualified the biblical belief in a creator who has sovereign control of his creation by adopting a Persian view of the universe with an elaborate spirit world and an ongoing war between the forces of light and of darkness.
You know what that is?
Right, Zoroastrianism.
Yep. Or Mithraism. Yep. Zoroaster and Mithra. Yes, sir.
So I wanted to pull that out because I know all day long we may argue and debate about this and that. What was the sons of God talking about? Were we talking about spirits going into women and getting these women pregnant? Or are we talking about righteous men? But I just wanted to add to that, historically speaking, it was a certain time frame when we started obsessing over that. Meaning in the antediluvian age, that was not really an obsession to be talking about spirits like that, or even talking about going to heaven or hell.
Yes,
People
sir.
was dealing with what was in front of them. But yeah.
Excellent. Torah for that. Hallelujah. Selah. Shakir, your hand is up, Aki. Your mic.
Okay, I like what y'all was talking about. It's very interesting to look at it from that perspective. I have a different perspective, obviously. I guess I'm more of a spooky type of demons and angels, giants, Nephilim, fairies, siren spirits type of person. You know me? Because the way I look at it, my interpretation of it, outside of religion, and nobody had to teach me this, I experienced it myself. You know what I'm saying? Celestial creatures and things of that nature. You know, we know that these exist. Some people don't know. They have never experienced the reality of these things, that these things are not just
ideas. They're real.
They're not just ghosts. They're not just ideas from other nations. Like I said before, there's truth within all these different nations. There's truth within all these trains of thought and religions and ways of life. There's truth within the Babylonian culture. There's truth within the Gentile Greek culture. And our people for generations were disconnected from that spiritual truth. And these pagan nations were illegally entering into these spiritual realms. You know what I'm saying? And they were able to, and they were encountering these deities and these celestials that were above those nations, and the demons that were associated with those pagan practices as well too. So I wouldn't be surprised that when we entered into these different lands, we were started learning about their the gods and the spirits that they were dealing with, you know. And so we became more fascinated from our own perspective, and started tapping back into what our ancestors would have been knowing, like during Enoch's time, and you brought up Jared's time, and during those foundational times, early in the Eretz, or in the earth, when the celestials were among us, you know, the watchers were among us, you know, these spiritual creatures, this divine council, these fallen angels, as I would say, they were among us, you know, they were interacting with us more, I would say, or at least of the righteous men that were on the earth doing Yah's will, that we were more tapped in. And, you know, I look at, when I read Genesis, on when it talks about the Nephilim, obviously I look at it like, these are not just regular men. These are celestials. They're not spirits to the point. See, that's my thing. My understanding of a spirit, it doesn't mean it's not physical, or it's how do I put this? A spiritual creature is operating at a different frequency or at a different vibration. In order for them to interact with us, they would have to change their frequency and vibration to match our own, so that they can interact with us. Like when you see, you know, well, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but when this random item gets thrown across the room because of this spirit or whatever, this ghost or this demon or whatever you want to call it, doors are slamming, whatever's going on. The principalities are trying to interact with you or scare you or whatever they might be doing at that time. But they're doing it through technology. They're doing it through the airwaves. They might be doing it through throwing something across the room or something like that. So they'll do that. But the way that they do that is by changing their vibration or their frequency to interact with the physical plane, or what we know as the physical plane, because there's not only one physical plane. There's dimensions, and in each dimension there are physical planes in that dimension. But we look at it as because they're spirits, they don't have a body that's like physical. You know what I'm saying? But it's no, they have a body. It's just not the body that's operating in this dimension. It doesn't mean it's less physical. It doesn't mean they can't do what we can do, essentially, or vice versa. It's just different planes of dimension. They operate at a different frequency than us. It's like saying, can I interact with the air? Or the air is not physical because we can't technically grasp it in our hands, or because something is so small in the quantum realm, it's not a physical thing. No, it's not that it's not physical. He's operating in a different frequency, a different dimension. It's too small for us to see. It's too small for us to interact with in the way that we would normally interact with matter, or matter that is in our dimension. That's something physically that big enough for us to touch. And that's just an example of, something that we know exists, but we can't technically touch like when we touch a regular thing. But like I said, these celestials are very, very real. Very, very real.
I think that like Elihu was saying that.
Yeah,
What
I
I
didn't say
think
that.
he
He
is
didn't say that.
saying
I
is
didn't say
that
that.
when we look at who the children of Elohim are in the scriptures,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to mystify that
Yeah,
as
and
opposed to
I
understand.
feel like that's the thing. Like we're trying to demystify something that doesn't need to be demystified, or something that doesn't need to be labeled as mystical. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't even label giants and demons and spiritual. If Yah is spirit, is he mystical? Should we demystify Yah? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm
Not to that
saying.
degree. I think it's more of a contextualized though. It's a contextualization.
I
Because if we
I
look at just if I may just real quick, if we look
mhm.
at Genesis 6 and the Nephilim solely as the angels, we're going to miss the intent of what the scriptures are pointing and how the earth became violent. It didn't become violent because of the and I will say this, the disembodied spirits. Those spirits had to have vessels in order to move on earth, if I may put it that way. And so possession, as you mentioned, possession is how spiritual influence takes place, right? How we see that. So and I'm not saying that the phenomena that you describe about doors slamming, pins throwing, things like that. I'm not saying that stuff does not happen. What I'm saying is for the influence of man to become light or dark, there is a spiritual occupant within that individual, that vessel that is causing that individual to move in the way that they do, whether they know it or not, right?
I agree. I agree.
And so when we're looking at B'nai Elohim and we're looking at B'nai Satan, you have to look at it in the spirit and influence that the individual is under, right? It's like you driving, if you're under the influence of alcohol, you're going to act as if you're under the influence of alcohol, right? And so it's the same thing spiritually. And so we just learn to really divide this in a way that allows for us to contextualize what the scriptures are speaking. Let's keep in mind the scriptures are a human story. This is what makes the Torah different and the Tanakh different and the Messianic scriptures different than a lot of these other traditions, because they're dealing with more gods. The scripture is dealing with humanity becoming like Elohim, which is how Yah created us. And so that's what the difference is. Like the gods are completely their own domain and dominion, and that's like the whole story with a lot of these other books. The scriptures are letting us know that we're bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth, and we're becoming one with the Most High. The gods are the gods in the other books. You know what I'm saying? Like they're entirely separate. And they're manipulated by humans, and they manipulate humans, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on in these other texts. But the scriptures are trying to show us how we are to subdue the earth in Yah's name and bring Yah to earth and bring peace and life and love and light to earth according to his Torah. So that's all I believe that I would argue with Elihu in saying that. And when we read the scriptures and we read about the children of Elohim or the sons of God, so to speak, as it says, we take it out of context.
In
And that's
what
why
way is it being taken out of context?
because it's entirely thought of like that's not us. That's not
Right.
our
So
ancestors.
And when you
it's
say it's not us, what do you mean it's not us? Like,
It's angels. It's just the angels.
right. How is it relatable to like to you? Like, what good is it to know that a son of God is some angel that's distant from you? And this is what Western society
I
do.
don't feel
They
distant
put
from an angel, brother.
you don't feel
And the
distant.
way that I would look at it is, if it whether it was an angel or whether it was a man that was a son of God, because we're all sons of God. So we try to say, even though it wasn't the angels, it was us because we're sons of God. But then some people say it was the angels because they're sons of God. No, we're all, this is what I keep saying. It's not one or the other, it's both. But at the same time, who are they talking about here in the context of this scripture? I
Excellent
look
point.
at it as in context, it's not talking about regular men. Because regular men, when they give birth to children, there wouldn't be a problem if regular men went and had sex with women and then had children. But the children testified that these were not regular men. Why? Because the giants, the Nephilim, were born, right? These are not regular children that are being born. These are abnormal. These are children that when they died, they gave birth to disembodied spirits, right? So that's why the evidence that comes after that, it does not saying that these are regular men. I know we could take it as that because we are also labeled as sons of God too. But from
May I do something real quick? And I'm gonna have we can continue, but I want to pray out because I want to go eat. Okay, it's getting kind of late. I don't want to eat too late. I want to pray out, and I'm gonna turn it over to you all, and we can let's just pray out, and then you can continue. Okay, if that's
yeah,
cool.
sure, of course.
All right, let's go ahead and get into a spirit of prayer, and I will do Alenu. So, in the spirit of prayer, hallelujah, hallelujah, and hallelujah. Aleinu l'shabeach le'adon hakol atek gedula la'yetzer breshit shelo sanu kegoy haratzot ve'lo samanu b'mishpachot hadama salo samhachenu kahem ve'gor aleinu kakol hamonam ve'anachnu korim u'mishtachoim u'modim lifnei melech melki hamalachim hakadosh baruch hu שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסוד ארץ, ומשוב יקראו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינה עוזו בגובה היי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. עומד מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבת אל לבבך, כי יהו האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מת אחד אין עוד. אלוהינו בלך יא אלוהינו לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, להעביר גוללים מן הארץ והללים כרוד יקרתון, ותכני עולם והמלכות שדי וכל בני בשר יקראו בשמך, להפונות אלוקי קודשי ארץ, יכירו ויודעו כל יושבי טבע, כי לך תקרא כל ברק תשבע כל לשון. לפניך יא אלוהינו יקראו ויפעלו, ולכבוד שמך יקרא אותנו, ויקבלו כל עמד על מלכותך, תמלוך אלוהים מהרה לעולם ועד, כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולם תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, היה ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, וחיה למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אחד ושמו אחד. Yevarechecha Yahweh Yishmerecha, Ya'er Yapanav Alecha Ve'yihunecha, Yisa Yapanav Alecha, Vayisim Lecha, Shalom, B'Shem Mashiach Yahushua, Baruch Hashem, Hallelujah, and Amen. Mishpacha, I'm going to go ahead and transition, but please feel free to stay in here. I'm assign the microphone to Aki Elihu, and you all have a wonderful evening, and I will get with you all soon. One love. Lehitraot.
Shalom Aleichem.
Shabaki, wow, what going on?
Good, man. Damn, that was powerful. Yo, that's amazing, bro. Like, the Hebrew language is really powerful.
Kane. Aki Shakir, you still there? I'm glad to see you was off anything with us, Shabaki.
Yeah, I was just listening, man. Sometimes you just gotta listen, man. Yeah.
I know that, right? Aki
Yeah.
Shakir done dropped off.
Nah, I'm still here, bro. My fault.
No, you good. As Moray Mikael was talking about food, he started making me hungry. But I want to give an analogy real quick though. You familiar with the Moors, right?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, so they took those sciences into Spain back in the, let's say, the 10th century during the Ramban Gaonic period. So they took all these high sciences up into Europe and were teaching white people not to live with animals. They were teaching them mathematics, astrology, cosmology. They were teaching them all these high sciences. And what happened was, in today's time, Europeans now have these high sciences in their hand and they misusing it. So I'm speaking about the Moors to give this analogy. I was gonna post some pictures of like Moor scientists, and you always got these pictures with white women around them. This will be the exact same thing of what we see in Genesis when it said the sons of Elohim went to lay down with the daughters of men. When these same men went in and taught European sciences that they now use to be a detrimental factor to humanity. And now the product of these Moors teaching the Europeans is they created giants. They created giants like the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, the Rockefeller, Bill and Melinda Gates. They created giants like Dr. Fauci. All of these giants that we got to deal with. Big Pharma, these are big corporation giants that we now have to deal with. These are the Nephilim, you know what I'm saying? And this is by way of people being impregnated with a certain science and doctrine that they was not supposed to have. They were supposed to stay with the sons of Elohim.
I totally understand what you're saying. There's a song that comes to mind while you're talking about it. Hezekiah put out a new album recently. I'm not sure if you tapped into it yet. If you didn't, I don't know what you're waiting for. But there's a song by Hezekiah. I think it's called Caleb.
Yep, Caleb.
I listen to this album almost every day, especially when I'm at work, just meditating on righteousness.
Fire, bro. Fire.
The album is called Eyes to the East, and the song, he does a skit for it called Caleb's Skit. And can I share my screen real quick? Just for a second. It's like not even that long. AJ, you still there, right?
Yeah, I just passed it to you.
All right. I'm supposed to do this. Start. All right. I think it's working.
This man to kick himself about the room. Lord have mercy.
My fault. I just signed myself out by accident.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that one more time. I'm gonna share my screen. 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. Just gotta make sure my audio is working as well too. Okay, it's valid. It's valid. All right, I'm gonna go to this song real quick. The song is called Caleb's Skit.
So
Y'all
the
can
Most
see
High
my
told
screen?
Moses, send out men and
Yes,
go
sir.
search the land of Canaan, and said,
Can y'all
"This is the land
hear it? By any chance too?
that I'm gonna give to the
It
children
sounds
of
We
kind of
can
low
Israel,
to
hear
me.
it.
I
that
don't know
land
why.
that Abraham won't."
Is it loud to y'all?
Yeah, it's
So he
decent.
sent out the men to go search the
Okay.
land and brought back a bad report, an evil report, a doubtful, a fearful report, saying these men are stronger than us. See, right now they financially stronger than us. The giants in the land, they financially stronger than us. But we got the spirit of Yah dwelling inside us. These are the modern day giants in the land, on the banks, on the media. And then Moses, scripture say, then Moses and Aaron fell on their face before the assembly of the congregation. Verse 7, they spoke unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceedingly good land. If the Most High delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flowing with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against Yah.
Mm. Yeah, so basically, y'all heard that good, right? Y'all was able to hear that?
Right, for sure. Get what, Shakir? It was
King.
just, it was just a couple months ago when we was in the tour portion for Debarim, and it was talking about, what was happening right before we went to the land. Also, the tour portion where they talked about the 12 spies. We had a long conversation about this. You was in the room too. But we had a long conversation about that very thing what Hezekiah was talking about these would be the giants in the land. Those people that's in Eretz Israel now. We did make that correlation before.
Mm. I agree. Listen, I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000%, brother. And like you said in the chat too, before the antediluvian, or if I'm saying that right, there were actual giants, Nephilim, that were, you know, however tall you want to look at them. But even I just look at it like this both. It's both. We can look at it in that way as well too, but who is to say that it's not? You know? Who's to say that it's not? I don't look at angels. And you had asked earlier, how can I practically take this and utilize this in my walk? And the way that I do is to not be one of the things that I think about is like it frees my mind from the matrix, the delusion that this world is just a physical and carnal world. Because we are dealing with spiritual things that are seemingly looking regular, but they're actually giants, spirits behind these people. You know what I'm saying? Now they're spirits, they're not they're spiritual beings that's are working through regular looking men, you know. But before, when they had bodies, they weren't, you know. These were creatures, and even when we really look at it through a historical lens, like you say, these creatures still have permeated, very rarely through our physical realm, through mutations and through people that have had I would call Nephilim DNA, you know, because of their what's the word I'm looking for? Their I guess I could just say mutations again, but some of these people have 6 fingers and 6 toes and 2 rows of teeth, and some of them are very, very tall. And then we think about Goliath and how tall Goliath was described to be. And, when I correlate these things with the real world and what I'm seeing, and from my perspective, it's like they're pretty much speaking about the same thing. It's just different time periods. And the way I can interpret that is it helps me understand the reality of the world that I'm in and what I'm dealing with. I'm not just dealing with just regular men. I'm not understanding the world from just a carnal lens where everything is just conceptualized and to fit my own point of view from a Western society where things are just, yeah, the giants are the big bankers. That's how I should look at it because. And then the sons of Elohim, they look just like me. They're just like me. I get that. We can look at it from that perspective too, but there's another perspective that we have to look at it. And it's the same thing as what is the concept between Paul and James, with Gentile and Jew, and it's the physical and the spiritual. It's the metaphysical, I would say. I wouldn't even say the spiritual, is the metaphysical, because when we say spiritual, it's like these things don't have bodies. But no, they do. They're just metaphysical bodies. They're made of a different type of material. They're not made of the dust of the earth. They might be made from the essence of the Shemaim itself, or whatever you want to look at it. Some cultures, like in Islam, they speak of how the angels were created through, I believe it was to fire or something like that, or something of that. And the jinn was created through fire. What element created the different celestial creatures and the terrestrial creatures? We were made from terrestrial elements. The celestial creatures were made from celestial elements. So I look at it like that. The giants walk the earth, and they still walk the earth to this day, but they're not as big as they used to be. And even they don't, and not all Nephilim are big. Some of them are short. Some people speak about them as gnomes and fairies and sprites and different things like that. Chupacabra, you know what I'm saying? Leprechauns, stuff like that. Some things that we would think is mystical, but in the ancient time and in the ancient world, these things were very common. It's just less common now because we're caught up in this matrix where we think the world is just physical and it's all about our view, you know. So I just look at it like it's taking the blinders off that Hasatan is not a real thing. Like Hasatan is, some people like to say Hasatan is his greatest trick was to teach the world he doesn't exist while manipulating the world at the same time. But now we know Hasatan does exist, and you could find him, a little bit of him in all of us. But also the entity himself, whoever that entity might be, and we know it's not just one Hasatan, but specifically I'm talking about the Hasatan, the one that we know of, most people know of. This entity actually exists. This angelic celestial creature exists, and is not I wouldn't take away his physicality because he's not a terrestrial creature. I would say he's physical in his own way, and we're physical in our own way. So I believe that we can, the things that we're learning from the scriptures that break away our captivity, our mind from just being carnal creatures, and acknowledging the spiritual realm or the metaphysical realm, however you want to call it, these different dimensions, like it takes away the blinders that that there is no Elohim. They're like, some people don't even believe in God. They don't believe in a spirit. They don't even believe in the Ruach. They don't believe in things they can't see, you know? So when you take away those blinders and you start learning about these things are real, like these things are real. And, it helps you be able to balance out the reality. You're not living a life of a lie anymore. So for me, it's just, I guess I'm just coming from that place where I'm not coming into this walk from a physical, knowledge-based, intellectual-based perspective. I'm like, just like Shaul. Shaul, he was. I have the intelligence. I study a lot, I learned so much in a short period of time, but that's not how I came into this walk. And that's not the reason why I'm in the walk. I was very studious before I came into the walk. I studied history. That was my best subject in school. But when that encounter with the supernatural happened, it destroyed my whole entire concept of this reality that I thought it was. When Mashiach manifested himself in front of him, it destroyed his concept of reality. And now he's coming now, and then he started teaching things from a supernatural perspective, and and then for you is similar to James the Just, intellectual, and this is my brother who is this is my brother. He's not some something to be worshipped, or he's not. He's a man. He's just a man. He's just my brother. Like, he can't be Mashiach, but then he realizes he is Mashiach. But then James is like, well, I'm Mashiach too. I don't get it. I don't know if you get where I'm going with this, but I look at James like it's these spirits that keep reincarnating. The spirit of Yeshua, the spirit of James is reincarnated into us. You are the reincarnation of James the Just. I am the reincarnation of Shaul. You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? It's so funny to me. It's so funny to me because it's like they all matter. You have to find the perfect balance, man. These giants walk the earth, and they still walk the earth. If you really read, I think it's in the book of Jubilees of Jasher, they talk about the children of the Nephilim. And from the giants, the children were called the Nephi, and then the children of the Nephi were called the Elioid, or the Oloid, or something like that. I think it's Elioid. And basically, they got shorter and shorter to the state where we would consider them to be Neanderthals. So that the giants today, or in modern times, more modern times, because this is like 200,000 years ago, depending on how you look at time frame. But like the cavemen, what we would consider to be cavemen, not like a regular caveman, but the cavemen, like the not Homo sapien, but Homo Neanderthal, and Denisovan. These are what would be considered to be the Elioids, the children of the Nephilim. And then we mixed in with these children. Some of us did. Science says that the African man didn't mix in with them. But yeah, you could look at it both ways. And I'm the kind of person where it's like I look at it both ways. Yes, we are the sons of Elohim, and it could be looked at that way. But also, these are the other sons of Elohim, the angelic sons, the celestial sons of Elohim, which is why we have evidence of mutated children that weren't normal, and the books speak of them. Other books outside of Genesis give us more clarity on what these creatures were, and which type of sons of Elohim we were talking about. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, while you all were talking about science, my husband and I watch, well, my husband more. I guess I watch along with him all these years, but we do watch World War II, the end of World War II. We were looking at the trials of all of the players, the long trial of everyone, all of the players and the Reich. But when you were talking about science, my husband and I always talk about Werner von Braun. You familiar with him? Werner
Warner?
Yeah, Warner. Well, we say Burner von Braun. He was like the head of NASA. He he was the rocket scientist in Germany that studied our rocket scientists here and came up with the V2, the rocket that was able to go long ways to bomb England. So he developed that rocket. He was the key rocket scientist who was developing all of these techniques, all of these rockets. They were like on the precipice of some, quite some great experiments. Okay. Yes, yes. Okay. He, after, how can I say this? After everything is over with, guess where he ends up? He ends up here and he becomes the father of NASA, the head of NASA. He helped develop, the space, all of those rockets, all of the rockets. You can look it up. Let me look up the father of NASA. See if I had that right. Well, it was Robert H. Goddard who was the there you go. There you go. So I was bringing that up because I was thinking about the other rocket person, like the next generation person, and what, like you were talking about on a spiritual level, what the it's like it's returning back to that World War II. What am I trying to say? It's not the innocent, let's just go to space and be heroes. Now we're mixing it with tearing apart the government and with someone who also has the funds to further this mental capacity of Werner von Braun, because he also had another side where he created the mechanism, I think he did, for, the gassing. But I was just thinking about, when you were talking about the giants, it almost reminds me of how when you saw the giants coming together to parse out Europe, bombed out Europe. And now they're gathering again. That's just one of my thoughts. I don't know if maybe I'm being too super, maybe I'm being too paranoid, but it does really seem like history does repeat itself.
Indeed, I'm with you when you're right. One thing that I think is very interesting about this Werner von Braun brother is that he predicted in 1948 about Elon Musk, somebody named Elon that will lead humans to Mars. Now, Elon, we know he been very, very busy right now. That's a giant that we dealing with right now.
Exactly. One with, man, yeah, gotta watch him because where he comes from and what the founding principles of his country that he's from, what the fight was in his country. He's from South Africa, isn't he?
You know what? I ain't even know that. I need to do a little
Yeah, we
history
need
on
to.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk from South Africa, huh?
I think so. Don't let me, Let's look it up.
You're right. He from Pretoria, South Africa.
Okay. So where is that and what is that? When you think about it, it gives you chills because you know that he was in the midst of the struggle and probably on the other end of it. And so carry that on, like what do they say when you're doing math? Carry the numbers over.
Oh man.
Carry over those numbers when you divide or when you're adding or whatever you got to do. It's very interesting. A really interesting time in history because if you go back and look, then you can see the same pattern. Like, bam, this is happening again.
Right. And so then why the oral tradition talk about it was 942 words before Adam was created. I think even what we recognize in our lifetimes, how certain things repeat, is these spirits regenerating.
So if you get a chance, now we watch it on YouTube. I can't remember. I can't pronounce the name of the trial. What was that? The Falstaff? When they had the trials of all of the the hierarchy of the regime and the Nazi regime. What was the name of that trial?
Around what time frame? You talking about
after World War II, the trial,
the Nuremberg trial.
Nuremberg. Okay. No, I'm sorry, I can't get it right.
You good.
If you go on YouTube, because we watch it all the time, you can look it up. Look at all the players and the names of what they were head of, and then start seeing these different efficiency, whatever is coming up. It mirrors some of those things. I started reading 1984, and they named some like the Ministry of Information and things like that, Ministry of you know what I'm saying? You're seeing some of these sort of, it seems like they are trying to form up these, like you have here, Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah.
So you talking about in the Nuremberg trials, all of the men that was basically going to court and getting convicted of crimes against humanity?
Right, but look at their titles and what they were head of.
Oh.
See, I couldn't spit it out correctly, but you see what, like, when you look at that and look at the titles.
Let me see these folks here. It's a lot of important looking folk though. I'm tell you that much. Let's see.
Oh, they strutted around for a long time in there. They had some good looking suits. For one, they were dressed to the T's, weren't they?
Indeed. So far, I'm seeing a lot of colonels and generals and chief of security. Let's see what else we got.
You had the propaganda, the head of the propaganda that did all their movies and stuff. I can't think of the people's names. You had a propaganda chief. They did movies and plays and everything. Something, I mean, very much the same as World War II, those different, the army movies that, my generation, we had to watch that because there was nothing else on TV. The John Wayne type of movies and stuff about the war.
What's your generation? What time frame was you born?
I'm 67. So I was born in 1956.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. 1950.
67. Yeah, so now I gotta go do a little bit more research on the Nuremberg trial now that you mentioned it and see all the players.
Yeah. And then see what you know, that it just came to my mind. So let's see you got
Nazi medicine. Ooh wee. Medicine.
okay.
Oh man.
Because now all of the experiments that were done on the people, they brought that right on back with them some, the year or two.
Well, we got to look at chemotherapy right now because chemotherapy derived from the mustard gas they was using. And if we seeing that these people was on trial, what does that say?
Right. I'm just saying. Like when people are cold, what do you call that? When you're cold, they study people how to bring them out of hypothermia. Mm-hmm. A lot of things that they breakthroughs, quote unquote, that they use the people for. It's horrible.
Hey, they ain't doggone.
I know. But that just made me think of that. I hope it's relevant.
Nah, I think it pretty is relevant. And I appreciate that because I might add this to my little presentation on putting together, man.
Yeah, break it down.
Yeah.
Because see, people don't they don't pay attention anymore once we get out of school, and we, unless you just really like history, people just throw it aside and don't look at it anymore. I think it's very important to look at that right now.
Yep. And see the patterns as it trickle down. Even
Right.
even by way of like one pattern that I noticed, in the 20s and 30s, you had the Bureau of Investigation, but until you had this black boy who was passing as white, J. Edgar Hoover, come up, now you got the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And
Yes.
so everything that he did in the 60s and even how it affected the Israelite community, and you got all these splinter factions that came about. And we see by generation. So in the 60s, you probably were dealing with the second or third generation of Israelites. Come up to, let's see, about the 2010s, we got like the fourth generation. Between the early 2000s and the 2010s, there was a psyop that was done on these so-called groups they was labeling as black intellectual extremists. And so now, boom.
The Southern Law, what is that, Southern Law Institute or something, called the groups extremists.
Yeah. So now we dealing with COINTELPRO regenerated in a different format, which is more strategic because at the brink of the millennium, from 2000 to 2001, the world had been destroyed. The world ended in 2000, you know what I'm saying? And we got a new world in 2001 when the Twin Towers dropped. That ushered in a possibility, not a possibility, but that ushered in a reason for our United States government to have internal surveillance by way of social media. This is when you get the first social media come out with 6 degrees. Then you get photo bucket, all these different social media that came out, and then by 2006 you get Facebook. Boom. Now all of these was the government way of having surveillance internally into the United States, because we also give up our right to privacy when we go with the terms and conditions of social media. And this ushered in a different form of COINTELPRO investigation. Now they got all this information stored in big archives of what these people they call it extremists. Even some of the stuff we talking about right now, we already know it's being monitored. So they made it their business by way of the internet, baby. The internet to kind of throw off the goal of nationality with Israelites. And now you have on the flop side, Israelites in the limelight, the fastest growing Israelite camps out there, the biggest ones,
We know.
all being fueled by that same psychology psychiatric operation that they started in the early 2000s, and it's just trickling down now that we're in the 5th and 6th generation of the Israelite community. It's
That's interesting.
it's a lot going on out here in these streets, and especially how these ideas keep evolving. The same way the ideas of Nazi Germany and World War II is evolving in different forms, and they all being detrimental to the well-being of humanity right now. But y'all, I'm finna get ready to call my old
Me
lady.
too. I gotta get up in the morning too.
Yeah.
Thank you all for just talking about current events. It helps because sometimes you get things on your mind and you don't know. You'll be thinking, am I thinking right? Or well, I know, my husband and I have been, we've been married a long, a good while. And so when we look at things, he's always saying, this is prophecy, this is prophecy. And then when we're looking at, did you read when Sister Brittany was going over?
Yeah, that was cool.
Oh my, didn't she lay
The voice
out?
message? Yeah, she did well.
Boy, that sister gave us a study.
Yeah, and low key, as I went to go look at the Torah for this week, I was thinking back to what she was saying, but in my mind, I forgot that she was the one saying it. Then I remember, oh, that was Brittany laying that down. That's what it's coming from in my brain. Like the relationship that she showed in Jubilees and Jasher, like that was fire.
Now I gotta I gotta get on my game, gotta pick up some more books. Y'all making me pull all these books. I don't even have enough room. I need a whole like a table with books laying on it.
Man, that's why in every Knesset was either a Bet Tefillah or a Bet Midrash. So we should have communal libraries out here.
Yes,
just for that very reason.
I always share my dear friend, has passed away. He was, my husband and I's pastor years ago. Okay. He had this concept, and the building's still there, but he passed away. Nobody has inhabited it, but it's called the Learning Center. And he had a Christian bookstore. But what he did was you had dictionary concord. This is back in the, I would say, 80s. Let me see. Yes, it was right near 92 or 93. So all for at least for that time, you could go there anytime and study with him. He was always there for study. And pastors would come in, people would come in, they would chop it up. He had scriptures. He had like a Christian reading. I don't know if you remember Christian Science reading rooms, but Christian Science reading rooms used to be really big. You could just go in there and read Christian Science. So, right. So he's the person that taught me. I got my first concordance from him. I still have it. He taught me how to look up. Well, back then we were just looking up Greek. You see what I'm saying? But that concept of a house of study is what we need. That's a dream on my, that's a dream. Get a place and then have the books, and everybody be on their honor about your book, Don't take the books. Let's be
I
on.
had to go and Google Christian Science reading room because I couldn't tell if you was talking about something that might be before my time or something that I might not just be aware of anyway. Because for one, shoot, I don't think I spent enough time in Christianity to know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
to know
just
much
saw
about it.
today a Muslim reading room, and it said everyone is welcome. I was in the city of Chicago, just past this place. And
I just left out the Chicago area today. Are you from Chicago?
well, I live in Maryville, Indiana, but I still I grew up in Hazelcrest, which is like 40 minutes from Chicago. Like it's about 45 minutes from downtown. But
You
where
said
I'm at,
you live in Maryville?
Maryville, Indiana.
I'm in Clarksville right now. How far is that from you?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sliding through Indiana right now. I had decided that I was gonna spend the night here in Clarksville. It's like right next to Louisville, Kentucky. Like if I go 20
Oh,
minutes
you're
down the road.
downstate. Oh, yeah, you're downstate. I'm in Northwest Indiana. Oh, you're near Louisville.
So you okay? Oh, you in Northwest. And look,
Northwest.
I just came through there too because I was in Peatone, Illinois, and I crossed over
Peatone,
to
yes.
yeah.
Peatone is kind of like South. Peatone, yes, that's South Illinois, Southern Illinois. Peatone.
So I went up close to the Chicago area, then I crossed over to Indiana and came down Indianapolis, and now I'm in
Oh, yes,
Clarksville.
yeah, you went down that way, like down 65.
Yeah, down 65, trying to get
Yeah.
on back to Alabama.
Oh, my family's from Union Springs. That's where my mom is from. Was from
No,
Union
hold
Springs.
on. You know what's so crazy? Why did you say okay? Out of all places in Alabama, why Union Springs? Like that's
Uh-oh.
that. Come on, man. That's where I grew up at. That's a small town. What's the odds of that?
It's beautiful.
I'm saying, who is your people down there?
Um, Now let me get the right name.
You say your mama's side of the family from Union Spring, right?
They were Scots.
Man, I know some.
Scots and Goodwins. Okay, so
What?
my cousin, oh Lord, oh excuse me for saying Lord, my cousin was my mom's cousin was Ardania Goodwin, and what was his wife's name? He's Ardania. Oh, I don't know why I can't remember her name. They had a like a farm in the fork of the road. That's all I remember.
You ever been in Union Spring before?
Yeah, only one time, but their farm was in the fork of a road. Like the one road went to the right, one road went to the left, and their house was in the middle.
You know what's so crazy? The thing about it, I'm related to Scots and Goodwins in a distinct way. Like, okay, put it like this. One of my band directors, and keep in mind, Goodwins is it's only one set of Goodwins in Union Springs, and everybody know the Goodwins because one dude named Charles Goodwin.
See, everyone's name was Charles Goodwin.
Right, it's a lot of Charles Goodwins, right?
Right, because the owner, I think, was Charles Goodwin. If I tried to look back, and a lady called me and she told me that everyone named Goodwin wasn't necessarily related because the man, I didn't go any farther. The man that owned everyone was Charles Goodwin. So yes, it's Charles Goodwin's. I learned that much. And let me see, and my mom was a Scot. My grandmother was Jeffanna Scott.
Okay, you talking about your grandma. So you got to be talking about somebody who was probably born in the Renaissance era around about the 20s.
Oh no, my grandma, let me see, was in, okay, my mom was born in 1918.
Oh, Lord have mercy. You talking about further.
So
You
my
almost
mom
talking about
would have
getting.
been, yes, so my mom, she would have been 100 or something if she was still alive.
Dang, your mom was born in 1918?
Yes, in
You.
Bullock County.
Yeah.
Bullock County.
That why I spent 20 some years of my life in Union
Well,
Spring,
I
Bullitt
am
County.
so glad to meet you, cuz.
Cuz I want to get this straight real quick because I know a lot of Scots. I know a lot of good ones. And remember, I'm telling you, the town is
Okay,
small.
so well, I think Jeffana Scott, the one, I don't know if she was married after, I don't know if she was named after my grandmother or not. Jeffana Scott used to live, I know that they still live there somewhere.
Jeffana Scott, huh?
Jeffana
You know
Scott.
how to spell that?
I think it's Jeffanna.
Okay. Cause like and you probably talking
That
about
was my
somebody that way older than me.
my grandmother's side was the Scots, and my grandfather's side was Goodwin. His name was Ardania or Ardanius Goodwin. Ardania Goodwin.
Get where I'm a ask the good ones that because I do know some older good ones. My band director, again, he was a Charles Goodwin. But first of all, you were saying that a slave master name was Charles Goodwin as well,
That's
like a
what
white man.
a lady told me many years ago when I tried to look up the family, because my grandfather died of the Spanish flu, like 19, right after my mother was born, leaving my grandmother to be a widow on the little farm or wherever she was. So she ended up coming up north with her brother, Louis Scott. So a lot of the Scots from there moved to the west side of Chicago. That's where my cousin Lottie Scott, and her brother, my uncle Mackenzie Scott, all lived on the west side of Chicago. That clan moved to the west side of Chicago from Union Spring and Birmingham or whatever. You silent. Are you still there?
No, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm
I
trying to
know.
piece something together real quick because everything I know the names that you saying like this way before my time.
Yes.
But I guarantee that my grandparents probably know of some of these names or probably heard by way of their parents some of these names that you saying. My grandparents were born in the 40s. So they
probably would have known my mom's cousin, Ardania Goodwin.
They probably do, and they be having good regular. Matter of fact, I be interviewing my grandparents, man, cause like when you in a small country town like that, the old people like, boy, everybody know everybody. Everybody seemed like they was related for real, like.
Oh well, they were. I mean, everybody in a way is. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
You know, this is just so wild because whenever my Absalom, Shard, and Irie and Aisha get back in their room, which they are part of Beit Mashiyach group chat, it like a good handful of us in there that's from Union Spring. We all grew up there.
Stop
Down the street
it.
from
You're
each
gonna
other.
make me cry. Stop it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's the
No,
coincidence of
I
this.
mean, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If I have, that was my mother's dream. She was always trying to connect because, when her father died, she was trying to connect to the Goodwin side. And it's a lot of good ones that came up here to Chicago. It's a place called Chicago Heights. south of Chicago. It's a lot of good ones. I went to school with good ones, but and I'll just say this, they'll say, I'm not that good one. You'd be like, I'm not trying to, I just was asking, yeah, I'm from over there, but I'm not that good one. So, I don't know what to say. We just never will. We found out one of my neighbors, I grew up in Markham. We didn't find out. My mom was so upset because until the lady really, she passed away, and my mom went to the funeral and found out she was a good one. All of those
What?
years living by us. All of her relatives, a lot of the Chicago Heights, good ones, but they always say, and you've got people that are fair and real fair. You go through the typical thing.
When you say fair, you talking about complexion?
Yeah, like maybe real fair complex. I know I met some people that were like real fair, were like red, freckle, I'm like, is this my cousin?
Man, I ain't lying. I got to show you. I do have a few cousins who are good ones. I got to show you pictures of them. And like I'm close to them. I see them a lot. They yellow, they fair,
Right.
like you saying.
Mhm.
And particularly my cousin who was my band director since I was a young man. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like these are some notable people in Union Springs. No cap, like
Now
they
there was
notable.
a lady that's on the birth certificate. I don't even know if I could find my mom, but my mother said she was the midwife that birthed a lot of the children.
And
think she
you don't know
was
her name?
No, I don't. I think her name was Goodwin. I don't know if her name's on there, but yeah. Shalom. I know we're staying up late now. Oh my goodness. But you know what? Lori, let me know what you find out, and if I need to pull out some stuff, I'll be glad to do that. Layla told Shakira's.
All right, let's hope.
Yeah.
One more quick thing, real quick, my Leoria. If you
Okay.
could tell me the name, if you can tell me the name of the Scott and the good one that you mentioned one more again.
Oh, okay. Where you want me to put it?
It was a J word that
You
you
want me to
mentioned,
type
a
it
J
in
name
here? I can type
that
it in
was
here.
attached to Scott.
Jeff
Yeah, type
Anna.
it in there. I'm gonna screenshot it.
This is my grandmother. Goodwin.
Around what time frame she would have been born? You reckon, like in the late
18
18?
something, man.
Yeah, okay.
And she was she was a Scot, but she was married to Ardanius. I think that's how you spell it. Ardanius Goodwin was my grandfather. All I have of him is a picture because he died of the Spanish flu in about 1919, 18. My mom was born, I think, 1918. So he might have lived. My mother never knew him because she was an infant. And all we ever have is one picture of him sitting on a rock. It looks like he's by a river or a lake or something.
Your mama ain't grow up in the spring, did she?
No, only until she was about 5 and her mother left because she was a widow.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, her husband,
What was your mama born?
my mother was born in Union Springs.
Oh, she was born in Union Springs. She was born at the house or something like that.
No doubt. Yeah. And my uncle Mackenzie was born in Union Springs, but they were only there until until maybe my brother was not my brother, my uncle was like 5 years old or something. And she came up to Chicago to her brother Lewis Scott.
Man, this
It
so
was
wild.
it was my grandmother who was the Scott.
I
And
guarantee you.
she had a bunch of siblings. I try to look it up, but then sometimes you get weary because it's just I feel it's separated. Now my cousins here, I might have. They're old. Well, they're older, and everybody's just kind of spread out. And my parents were older, so they couldn't travel back and forth to the city. You know, to visit the cousins. My parents were older, so I didn't get to totally get with my cousins after a certain, maybe at
Yeah.
10 or 12, they just were up in age, so they couldn't be driving back and forth to the city. You know what I'm saying? Like they did when we first moved out where we moved. My parents moved away from the city. West side of Chicago was where everybody lived, on the west side.
Going Chicago. It's so very interesting though, because you round about my grandma age, and her mama was born in that same exact year was your mama born too, 1918. Which that's why I so never gonna ask my grandma if she recognized any of them names that she probably would have known or heard from her mama. You know what I'm saying? Of your
Also,
grandparents.
Jeff Anna Scott. Jeff Anna Scott seemed like she still lived. I don't know if her last name, if she got married, but I know she was Jeff Anna Scott.
Now, Jeff Anna Scott, she's somebody that would be. You said she would be alive during this time.
I don't think I think she passed away some years ago, but she lived still in Alabama.
Yeah.
She and her children and her sister Lottie. Well, Lottie was married to her last name was King, but Lottie Scott, Jeffanna Scott, Alonzo Scott, and
Wait, see, hold on. Okay, now what time frame? You said okay, Alonzo Scott, Jeffanna Scott, and she was related to a king, or she was married to a king.
My cousin Lottie Scott was married to, his name was Heron King, but he was from like Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham. That one I'm originally from. Now get what? Lottie, about what time frame? Like, I'm trying to figure out the time frame because I know that I heard that name Lottie before. What time frame was Lottie?
Now she lived in Chicago, but Lottie was around the same age as my mother.
Okay. So that would have been.
So she would have probably been born like the 1918 or something like that.
Okay. And
So
she mostly lived in Chicago.
Well, I know she came up. I got a picture of her, so she probably came up when she was a young woman. I got a picture of her. She might have been 20 or something, and came up to, because that's how people did. They came up to stay either with my Uncle Lewis or some other, relative.
People was going to the promised land.
Well, yeah, that's what they thought. I mean, you could get a job and all that and buy a property, but it was, yeah. So it was Lottie, her sister Jeffanna. She had another sister too. Her brother Alonzo. Now one of her sisters still lived. Jeffanna lived still in Alabama, and she had another sister. I can't think of her name right now. This is just too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell my sister, I'm gonna tell Shad, I'm gonna tell Ice, I'm gonna tell a few of us. I'm gonna say, y'all know Imai Leoria said she got folks in Alabama, and she didn't just say in the city. She said Union Springs. What? What's the chance? What's the odds of that? Like, we all from Union Springs. Like,
You
grew,
all are from Union Springs.
man, grew up there. We just left from being there. Like, I don't live there no more. I moved out of Union Springs like 2 years ago. Not 2 years ago. 2 months ago. Shoot.
Oh my goodness, this is just a small world. Well, I'm so blessed to meet you.
Yes, ma'am. Glad to meet you too. Indeed.
Well, you know what? I need to show you my face.
Yeah.
Just excuse
Hey. Yeah, you from Union Spring, yeah. That's your roots.
Look, I got the eyebrows.
There you go.
Yes, I am from Union Springs.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about. The roots there.
Yeah, I'm thankful my mom, you know, my mother told me and everything. And you just keep in touch and I'll share pictures or whatever. I have to go back in and you know what I'm saying, and look up some more names.
What I want to do is next time I go to Union Spring, I wanted to go to the library because they do have a small library there, and they inside of the library they got these old books with all like full of names.
You
And I
know
remember,
what, boy, that you know what, that's such a blessing because I had tried to look online and you can look at the what do you call it? When they do the count, you know,
the
census. Yeah, when you do the census, then you can see the people, you know, how many people were in the household and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we got the same nose.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. I'm telling you, we might be related for real. I'm kin to Goodwins. Charles
Oh,
Goodwin, Chad Goodwin,
wow.
Tusi Goodwin. Like, I'm related to them folks.
Wow. It's a small world. I'm so thankful to the Most High, man.
Next time we on here, I'm gonna tell my sister I'm gonna say, hey, you know, Leora said she related to the Goodwin. She gonna be like, oh my God, that's our cousin.
I'm
Yeah, I
telling
guess
you,
she gonna say that.
my mother tried to connect. We went to visit a lady in Dayton, Ohio. That was a good one. She was living in Dayton, Ohio. Then my mother found out it was a lady in a nursing home by us, and she used to visit. The lady wasn't really talking or nothing, but my mother was a nurse, but she would go visit this lady. She
So no.
found out you know, my mother was trying to find the good ones, but she never could totally. Only, oh God, why can't Nebraska and Francis Goodwin? Okay, that's the other name.
Nebraska and France.
Nebraska. Okay, you want me to type it in here?
Yeah, type it off in there, and I'm a screenshot it. I'm gonna show enough.
Nebraska and Francis Goodwin. They were my mom's cousins, and that's why I went to visit them on their farm once, and Francis used to come up and visit my mom sometime, visit us in where we live. And there was some good one living in Florida when my mom went to visit. It was a good
We was some good one down there in Florida.
Yeah. He was like on the police force or something years ago. Yeah, my mother went to Florida. I can't tell you where she went in Florida. Cause I was like maybe, you know, like 12 or something like that when she went.
Well, shoot, that's all this same area. Like that my stomach ground too. I grew up about 10 years of my life in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So
Mhm.
I've been like all these things stumping ground anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
same
yeah.
area.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got Nebraska and Francis, and they had the farm, and it seemed like the farm was like in here, and the road, like people could go down the road this way and go down the road that way. And like their farm somehow was in the middle of the like a fork in the road. That's the only thing
Mm.
I remember. They had a serious farm. It was a nice house with a big porch, and he had cows and chickens and pigs. I remember that.
That definitely it, boy. That's definitely it.
He had
That sound
everything. They didn't have no running water. They had the thing like this, you know. They had the pump, and you had to, slop the hogs, that whole thing. I was about maybe 13 when I came out there. I can't
so.
remember.
Other than that, like you were more close to your dad's side of the family or your mom's side of the family, or nobody.
Well, my mom's side, like I do have one cousin, Alice, that I keep in touch with.
But they up there in the Midwest with
Right.
you. Mm.
Yeah. Oh, my cousin Lottie had another sister named Martha. She passed away some years ago.
Oh, I see. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that connection
Let me
still
write
went
this
made.
down. I'm gonna put their name. I'm gonna put Lottie Scott, Jeffana Scott, Martha Scott, Alonzo, Alonzo Scott, and there was one other cousin, but she didn't, I can't think of her name because she didn't live. All of these live in west side of Chicago from Alabama.
Going Chicago,
They were
Alabama.
part, they were part of the no, they came from Alabama up to Chicago. But Jeff Anna Scott stayed down there. These are all brothers, these are all sisters and brothers.
Oh, they siblings.
Siblings.
So no.
But Jeff Anna Scott, she had the same name as my grandma, who was Jeff Anna. She was married to the good one.
I'm gonna screenshot as soon as you send them over. Oh, there you go, Lottie Scott. Yeah, Jafana Scott. Martha Scott, Alonzo Scott. That my first name, Alonzo.
Are you in
Birth,
Alonzo?
yeah, that my birth name.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, thank you for talking to me.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't. Mm-mm.
I got me a little project now. I can't wait to go back
Oh,
to the brain so I can.
you doing some research. Oh man, especially if you could go to I would just appreciate that so much if you could go and take those shots of those pages. That would, my mother searched so hard. She used to, she loved her dad. She never knew him. And even when she was elderly, she would, hold on to his picture.
Okay, cause you say her dad is from Union Spring too, and he the one died
Yes,
from
he
Spanish
died
flu.
in the Spanish flu pandemic.
Yeah.
He died in the pandemic.
Man, great day.
Great day, I'm telling you, for me. Wow, it's just a blessing to be able to share. I tried to hang on to it, my family is small as me. I'm an only child, and then I have a daughter and a son and a granddaughter. We're small.
Oh, you was the only child.
Yes,
Dang.
my parents were older, so my mom was almost maybe near 40 when she had me.
That makes sense. And so, okay, I see what's going on. So your mama, she was low key trying to figure more out about her origins as well too, cause she ain't remember too much about Union Spring, and she was 5 when she left.
No,
I
she
see.
was a baby, and my uncle might have been 5.
Okay, I see what's
And I
going
know
on.
my uncle. I never knew my uncle to go back down there. I know the other Scots. They went down sometimes.
See, get what? A lot of I'm talking about everybody in Union Spring got folks in Chicago, got folks in Detroit, Milwaukee. Because we know, that what people were doing back in the day. A lot of people did come down, but I do notice people that had smaller families, like you saying, the smaller families didn't really come back down because it wasn't too many people that was like,
they didn't know. Like my
yeah.
mom had just I don't even know how she met Ardania and Jeffana. Now, what she told me, I don't know, but they were Jeffana and Ardania and Nebraska and Francis were related. They didn't have any children, but I guess it was to keep the property. I don't know. They never had children or anything like that. That's just because I don't know what, I think they have a good reputation, but yeah, I don't know if they were both good ones. Nebraska and Francis.
Oh,
we know Nebraska was a good one.
Shoot, and then the time frame that he's talking, shoot, you ain't got but a few more, 1 or 2 generations before you is actually slave time. Past what you saying
really?
right now.
Right. I mean, it was said that my grandmother Jeffana was released from it, but she didn't talk much. She was a very quiet lady. She just didn't talk. A lot of times elder people didn't talk about that stuff. It was, taboo.
Yeah, no, they showed then.
It's a lot.
Nah, I ain't even gonna lie. It's a lot of stuff. Like even older people nowadays, like people your generation in Union Spring. Let me tell you something. Union Spring like a time capsule. A lot of the history still preserved there because we ain't had no industrialization building on top of stuff. All the old housing from the early 1900s
it's still there.
And like for example, my grandma, she around your age, but she don't know nothing about that technology. The way how you just type them names in there, she don't know nothing about all that. Cause it's just country, you know what I'm saying? So
yes.
So like everything preserved there. And I can kind of tell what it was back then just by just looking around. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, the reason why this so interesting to me to see you being somebody who in the Midwest, but you got ties and roots in Alabama, because if you were to come to Union Springs, there's a lot you can probably find out about. Back then too, it was so much stuff that the older people still don't talk about, but it was a lot of weird stuff too, bro. Like people doing roots like crazy in Union Springs. You know what I mean by roots? Like African spirituality, voodoo and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a bit of spookiness too, for real to it. Like it weird, bro. I ain't gonna lie, but it's interesting at the same time to see like the history of Black people in general.
Right. Yeah. But when we are able to like hang on to these names, and when I think about it, I really need to it's written down a little bit more, but just write it. That's why I have been trying to get on Ancestry to build it up so that my children would know, because they have no way of knowing. And now I know somebody from the area, but I didn't know anybody to say, oh, let me go, come, or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? Didn't know anybody there.
Well, I tell you what, if you ever just so happen to think about coming to Alabama, let us know. Shoot, me and the Akeem and my Akoti them, we'll meet you
Oh,
down there
y'all
in Union
just
Spring.
wow.
We'll meet you down there and give a cool little tour.
Oh,
Matter of fact,
definitely.
you ever heard of Tuskegee, Alabama?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right. So that like 10, 15 minutes down the road from Union Spring.
Wow.
And
Is it?
it's a lot of preserved history in Tuskegee. Like, it's crazy. Like, I ain't lying.
I had no idea it was that close.
Yeah, it's down the street. Like, matter of fact, like, you would think, like, it real close. Get on Highway 29, 15 minutes down the road, you in Tuskegee. Matter of fact, my mama used to teach at Tuskegee University. Matter of fact, my daddy was born at the hospital on Tuskegee University because a lot of people
you couldn't go nowhere.
Yeah, Union Springs ain't had no hospital birth insurance or nothing like that.
And the midwife was probably gone.
Right. So you were either born at the house or you just so lucky to be in Tuskegee.
Oh wow, this is amazing, man. You know what? Praise y'all. The Father he be doing stuff, don't he?
Strategic, man, strategic.
So strategic. We up here chopping it up about the scripture and then stumble upon this. Well, my day is made. I could lay down in peace and say hallelujah. And then I think back to my mom and that will bring joy, just knowing that, to try to put the 2 and 2 together, because she searched, but the tools weren't there back then to do it. Like,
oh yeah.
Now, all she could do was ask people and keep trying.
They're definitely right.
Yeah. Well, brother, I gotta get up in the morning.
I know that, right? Me too. I gotta head on back to Alabama.
All right. Will you be safe in your travels?
Yes, ma'am. Most I will indeed. Y'all be good over there where y'all at too now.
Well, say shalom to my cousins.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Indeed.
I'll be looking forward to the information when you get it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Laila told, like he told.
Laila told.